Hey, it's Rick. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to make 4 adorable axolotl cards using the Pink Cuties Stamp Set. I've already stamped those out on my 4 watercolor card bases. I'm going to use some Distress Reinkers as watercolors. I picked out a color palette. We're also going to use a few Distress inks for our ink blending as well. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh my little color palette here. And then we are going to start adding in our color. I'm going to come in with abandoned, let's see, I think it's picked raspberry first. And I'm going to color my little starfish on this card. And then I'm going to come in with just a tad bit of abandoned coral and add that in as well. And let those blend together on the paper. Just softening them with a thirsty brush, so there is no harsh line. So we're going to add just a little bit more color in that. So we can go on to our little axolotl. And for this, I'm using carved pumpkin in its body. So I've put it in the darkest area first and then pulling it out. I'm going to do all 4 cards the same way, just different color combinations. So using that same color palette. So we're going to go ahead and soften that edge. I'm going to go ahead and do the antenna and part of the body for our little axolotl from our Pink Cuties Stamp Set. I'm going to go ahead and soften that edge as well and pull it out from where our shadows are. I'm going to add a little bit more shadows in there. I'm still using carved pumpkin for our little body. And I am using my Distress Reinkers as watercolors, if I did not mention that, which I'm pretty sure I did. So we're going to go ahead and do that one. I'm going to add some Kitsch Flamingo in for the little cheeks and soften that out. I'm going to come in with Kitsch Flamingo as the first layer of the little fluffy part of her tail. I don't really know what those are. And I'm also going to use those on the antenna as well. And I'm going to switch. I did switch to a smaller brush for part of the little images. I'm going to come in with Kitsch Flamingo up on the first part of the antenna, and then I'm going to add in a little bit of some darker colors as well. I'm going to go ahead and put this Kitsch Flamingo in first, pull it out where I want it to be the lightest. And remember, we're using a thirsty brush, so I'm going to soften those little cheeks again. And then I'm going to come in with just a little bit of candied apple, just on the very base of the antenna, just to deepen it up just a little bit. And we're going to add a little bit into her tail as well. So we can add a little bit of that color in there, and I will soften that out to give it a deeper, intense shade. So we're just going to go ahead and pull that out. And then I'm going to add in just a little bit more color. I'm going to pull in some seedless preserves, which I believe is what we're doing right now. Could be the candied apple. I can't really tell. I think it's seedless preserves. I'm pretty sure that's what that is, yeah. So I'm pulling in the seedless preserves now to just kind of soften, add a little different tone to that. And I'm going to add some to the antenna as well, up at the top of their head, so that it does have a little contrast and it's all coordinated. So we are going to go ahead and add in a little bit more shadow right there on each one of those closest to the head, so that we can have a little bit of different tone there. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of abandoned coral to hit the little starfish's mouth. And I'm going to darken in the little spots on each of our little critters. We're going to add some just little dots. And then we're going to move on to our second card. And we are going to start off by using seedless preserves. No. Yes. No. What color is that? Picked raspberry as our base color for our little axolotl. So I'm starting off, and this time I'm giving it more of a central highlight. So we're going to add deeper colors on both sides of the face. And I'm pulling that out. And I'm going to darken up our little next layer. I'm just giving it a little bit more darker tone. That's the good thing about watercolors, is that once you're in there and it's still wet, you can add different layers to help get it a little bit more intense without having to overwork it. But you do have to be super careful about that. So I'm going ahead and do the body. I'm just giving it the lightest shade already and pulling that out where, again, I am starting where I want it to be the darkest and pulling that color out to be lighter with a thirsty brush. I cannot stress that enough. The thirsty brush is probably your most important tool when trying to watercolor. So we're going to go ahead and finish up our little axolotl here. We're going to add another layer of color. Using that same color, I'm going to dry that. So I didn't want it to smush out anywhere. And then I'm going to come in and work on the antenna. And for this one, I end up changing it completely. I started off with, I think it was I don't even know, abandoned core, I believe. But I'm going to end up changing that to make it a little bit darker and contrasty, to make it stand out from the card a little bit more. I'm coming back in and adding some shadows into those little areas where anything overlaps. Just like we're coloring with alcohol markers. It's basically the same thing. Watercolor is transparent and actually more forgiving than you think. So I'm going to go ahead and add in another layer of color. And we will go ahead and do the little mouth. I did put in the pink in the mouth first and then added some dark. And then I'm going to add a little bit more pink because it got a little too black. So I went in with the black. So I'm going to lift that out and add in some more of the picked raspberry back there. Just to kind of, I only did that so that it would mute out a little bit and not be so bright. For their mouth, now I'm adding candied apple to their little tongue. Or to her little tongue, or his little tongue. Now for our little antenna, I'm adding some candied apple into our little fella. And then I'm going to add some more picked raspberry on the edge because I'm darkening up my shadows now. So we are going to come through, darken up our little shadow areas. So y'all will be seeing this the day after Easter. I hope that everyone had a safe and happy Easter holiday. And I am going to speed this up, add some music, and let y'all watch the coloring process. And I'll be back after we finish our other two cards. All right, we have all of our cards all watercolored up. Now we're going to add a little focal panel to each card. For the first one, I'm using Villainous Potion and a background basic mask stencil to have a circular focal panel. For this one, I'm keeping that same circle stencil, and I'm using Seedless Preserves and Rusty Hinge as my two colors. This one I've offset a little bit so that I can use the Crackling Campfire and Rusty Hinge on that card. I'm going to do 2 different layers of that, adding just a little bit of that Crackling Campfire to brighten it up a little bit. And then I'm going to switch over to the A2 stenciling mask for Missing Stamps for this card. And I'm going to tape it to the back so that I have it nice and secure. And I'm going to add in Crackling Campfire on the bottom right of the little bit of Seedless Preserve at the top, and then Seedless Preserves on the left to create my focal panel on that side. Now we can pop these into our Misty and pull out our sentiments that we're going to be using. So for this card, I'm going to use the You're Axolotly Amazing. And I'm going to stamp it down in the center of our focal panel with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then I will peel that one off. We're going to move on to our next one. For this one, I'm using the I Love You a Latte. A Lotto. I Love You a Lotto. I don't know why I think a latte. Apparently, I want coffee. All right, for our next card, we're going to do Smile a Lotto, like an axolotl. We're going to stamp that down twice as well. And then for our last card, we're going back to the You're Axolotly Amazing because that's just a great sentiment. So why not use it more than once? So I've got all my sentiments done. There's all my cards. Now we can start our embellishing process. And before we get done with anything, I'm going to come in with a black gel pen. And I'm going to go over their eyes to darken those up and their mouth as well. Because I did use that Hickory Smoke ink, so it is a lot lighter than black. So that's why I chose to come in now with our black gel pen so that I could touch up the eyes. And then I'm going to do this last one right here because I forgot him. And then I'm going to come in with my white gel pen, and I'm going to start adding a few white gel pen highlights to our card, to each one of our cards. So we're going to add a little to each of our little characters, mainly on their ears, or antennae, whatever you want to call them, their tails, their body, their heads. You know, anything where that's going to make them pop out is where I'm going to add a highlight at. And we're going to add some to our little starfish as well. And we'll add some to this little character over here. And we will add our highlights there. So now I'm going to come in with some Stardust stickles. And I'm going to add them to the antenna or ears or in their little tails. The little flowy parts of their tails. Along with a few little dots around the card to make it look like water bubbles popping up. So I'm going to add some, move on to our next little card. Some of the characters, I actually did add the Stardust stickles to their body and smooshed it out with my finger. We'll see that here in shortly. We're going to add mostly to their antennae or ears. I really don't know what those are. If you know, let me know. I'd love to know what those are. If those are antennae or if they're ears. So we'll go ahead and do our last card right here, embellish it up. So I'm going to come through, add a little stickles to it. I'm going to smoosh it out with my little finger on both of our little characters so that they're nice and glittery. And you do have to be a little bit careful with that Stardust stickles because it may activate the reinkers. You just have to be careful. I did add a few more bubbles around. Here is a look at all 4 of our cards. I will add these to card bases off camera. But if you need any of the supplies, I have them all linked and listed in the video below. I'll see you in the next video.